Hey there, everybody. Ford here, aka Moontime Dweller, playing Legacy Magic Online today. We have a sneak attack deck that I call Sneak and Breach. It doesn't have Show and Tell or Blue or anything like that. No Force of Wills. This is strictly red. We have 7 moons in this deck. We got 4 Blood Moon, 3 Blood Sun, where you draw a card and all the lands lose abilities except for mana abilities, so that helps our City of Traders. It helps it stay in play and still tap for 2 lands, which is terrific. It doesn't change the fact that you take 2 damage from Ancient Tomb, however, so that's really the only way it helps us, but it's a great cantrip, and can shut down the lands deck, and it can shut down Wastelands and Richton Ports, and I mean, just umpteen other kind of things. Threats that really we run into a lot. So this is a deck I've been playing for about probably most of this year, most of 2018 online. It's relatively expensive, both online and a lot more in paper, especially because of the lands. Ancient Tombs and City of Traders are just skyrocketing. Emrakul's and Gristlebrands are a big deal too. So we'll get right into it. It's in addition to the moons, we have Seething Song, card that's banned in Modern, 5 mana for 3. Very good. Simian Spirit Guide actually can be a good 2/2 beat stick if you get in trouble and maybe they're not doing anything. I've won with Simian Spirit Guide straight up, 10 turns in a row attacking. It's pretty amazing. But usually it's used for exiling from your hand and getting an extra mana. Sneak Attack, one of my favorite cards in all of Magic. Gosh, I was probably about 12 years old when this card came out, and it was just the bee's knees. You put out Sarah Avatar and any kind of dragon with it, which is of course why a dragon is on the art. Shivan Dragon was a big card when this was around. So much fun. Put a creature card from your hand into play, anything, and for 1 red, and you have to sacrifice at the end of turn against haste. You can do a lot of damage through that. I'm playing one of the Chandras, the new Chandra card in the main deck. It's just really good, especially with all this mana that you have. Possible turn 1, you can jam this card out, and really, except for Tibalt, I would say any Planeswalker in all of Magic, if you could play it on turn 1, you should do well in the game. Maybe not win every game, depending on which Planeswalker it is, but this one is very strong. It's like the Jason Mind Sculptor version of Chandra. So this one can add 2 mana, 4 damage to a creature, and you can look at the card, top card of your library, which is usually Chandra's gimmick, more or less. So very, very fun card. Through the Breach is another enabler, just like Sneak Attack. I only play 3 of them. I used to have 4. It's very fun, very good, easy to play. It's just Sneak Attack is something that stays on the board, and you can do multiple threats with it. This is a little bit more difficult to play. I mean, just a little bit, and it only happens once, so it's kind of a silver bullet. Very, very good card, though, kind of the basis of the deck. Chalice is part of the prison version of this part of this deck. Just like the moons and the Chalice, it just kind of shuts people down. We don't really have any 1-drops. We don't have any 2-drops either. So, if you play it on 0, yeah, you can shut down your own Lotus Petals. But if you play it for 1 or 2, you are golden. Sometimes you might have to play it on 3. I don't think I've ever had to play it for more than that. Usually 1 is the play, and I tell you, I've had some people just quit the whole match, game 1, when I play Chalice on turn 1 for 1. So, especially you do that with your soul lands here. And into the fatties we have. So the fatties we play through Sneak Attack and through the Breach, obviously. We have usual suspects, Emrakul, very good card. They sacrifice 6 permanents, 15/15. I mean, pretty crucial. Only note that I have is that it's not really great to play it on turn 1 or 2. This is one that you want to play more in the mid game if you can. unless they're already at 15 through fetch lands or some other damage that you dealt to them somehow. Unless it's winning you the game, I would wait until about turn 4 or 5 to play it, just so you can get maximum advantage out of it and get them to sacrifice all their lands. Just whatever they have. So that's my only note there. Griselbrand, another usual suspect. Draw 7 cards for 7 life, 7/7, lifelink, flying. I mean, pretty unbeatable there. You got Worldspine Worm also, 15/15, trample. When it dies, I get 3 5/5 worm tokens with trample. It shuffles itself into the library, unlike Emrakul, who not only shuffles himself, but my entire graveyard into my library, which is amazing. Inferno Titan is something that's kind of debated in this deck. I like to play 3 of them. It's a card that you can cast very easily, just like in the mono-green Progenitus deck or the green-red Progenitus deck that I showed in a previous playlist. This is kind of a similar deck. I would say the Progenitus deck is the modern version of this deck, or the closest thing other than Griselbrand in Modern, which is kind of the tier 1 version of this deck in Modern, because it plays most of these creatures, actually, the same creatures. Yeah, that's really just my rundown of the main deck here. So this is my sideboard coming up here. Just to feel safe, I play 3 red elemental blasts. It's great for True Name Nemesis. You can counter it. Good for countering Counterbalance, which is kind of still oddly popular, even though Sensei's Divining Top is not available anymore. Very fun card. It's of course Force of Will, Daze, things like that. Just keeps me safe, and I really just don't have anything else that's good. I've tried so many other options like Boil and Abrade and just things like that. This is kind of a silver bullet that I was talking about earlier, but this is a true silver bullet. You look at their hand. You don't have to pick exactly a card in their hand, but you kind of know the deck that they're playing when you do it. And you can shut down a Jace, a Deathrite Shaman, really any Planeswalker or land, like Wasteland or anything like that. It's just super strong, and something they have to deal with. It adds to the prison aspect of the deck. Trinisphere, yet another prison aspect to the deck. This is good for Storm and Force of Will decks, especially because they have to exile the blue card and pay 3 and 1 life to get Force, which a lot of times they do, but it's a lot more of a pain in the butt for them to deal with. Trinisphere is just very good against Elves. I mean, just so many other decks, but it's not good to main deck it. I think Chalice is a much better card, especially since you have a bigger chance of being on the play, and you can kind of take out a combination of Blood Moon and Blood Sun, and maybe the Chandra, and add Trinisphere as you like. As for the rest of the sideboard, I have 4 Leylines of the Void. Other people use Fairy Macabre and Relic and Tormod's Crypt and a slew of other options. I just say screw it. Play this out of my hand at the beginning of every game that I get it. Any deck that's depending on the graveyard is completely shut down, more or less. I can get Nature Claimed or something like that. It can get destroyed pretty easily, but they really have to go out of their way to do it. This card really, really shuts people down. Dredge, of course, and all the things that are normal with this. So I love it, and I have 4 slots in the sideboard. It's kind of a redundant sideboard, but here we go. We got a second Chandra. I like the idea of being able to play it on turn 1 or turn 2, and if for some reason it happens in a match and it works, I like to bring it in again and try to do it again, and maybe distract the opponent from what I'm doing, primarily, which is sneak attack an Emrakul in or something like that, and they'll be going after the Chandra and attacking the Chandra and dealing with it, from turn 1 on, Meanwhile, I'll get sneak attack out, and, through the breach my Emrakul. So that's really my approach there. Then 3 Fiery Confluences, super popular commander card. That's been very good, for me in the sideboard. It's just a given in most everybody's sideboard with this deck. It can wipe out 3 damage to every creature, or you can just do 6 damage to the dome for 4 mana, or you can pop 3 artifacts, or you can do a mixture, which is amazing. When you do only 2 damage to the opponent, it's really not that big of a deal. But, when you're doing 2 damage to each creature, 2 damage to their head, and destroying one of their precious artifacts, that can be a big deal, all for 4 mana. So that's really my breakdown of this deck, Sneak and Breach for Legacy. I guess I didn't really mention Lotus Petal. Huge card. Of course, for turn 1, you can just mash out a Blood Moon on turn 1 with Lotus Petal and one of your Soul Lands. And I actually use 9 Soul Lands. I have a Crystal Vein in there from Mirage. It taps for 1, and you can sacrifice it and add 2. It's a little kamikaze and a little bit more of an all-in version. This is just the way I like to play it. It's my kind of deck, and my approach to Magic is, do you have it? If you don't, I'm going to trample over you. That's just what I like. So, thank you all for joining me very much, and I hope you all enjoy the matches that follow. See you soon.